Okay, so we're on to day 3. If you're using a similar pad to me, you have to be a bit inventive to make sure that you've taped it down a little bit. So I have to use a tiny bit of tape here because it just tends to spring around. So I'm going to do a snowman today, which is going to show you a few little different techniques, and especially to look at shadow on white and how to work in highlights. Now I've started to draw it out and then thought, well, actually I should show you how to draw out. So I've done 2 eyes and then I made them quite dark so that I know where the highlights are. Orange for a nose, you could have a carrot for a nose, which would just go like that, and then there, and then the coal for the mouth. Once you've got that shape in, then you can work for the rest of it. So we're going to pop in a circle for the head. Now I tend to go round and round and round. This is how I was taught at college. You basically make several circles and you choose one of those. Then for the body, I'm going to do a bigger circle that just very slightly overlaps that one. I've got quite a big-headed snowman here. I'm trying to fill the page a little bit. Scarf wise, you basically follow a line round, drop a scarf over, follow the line round, finish, and then pop a little bit underneath. You can do some tassels. You can do some more coal 4 buttons there. Hat wise, you're going to come across the top of the head. We'll stick a Santa type hat on this one. There's a video for a Christmas card one where I do a top hat type. So we're going to have a woolly hat. So we're making the rim of the hat, and we can come over and pop a pom-pom in just there. So it's really, really nice and simple. You can have a couple of little twigs for arms, which is also quite cute. So I'm back to yesterday's palette. There will be a theme. This will carry on. Just having a sip of coffee. I like to use the same paint up. Actually, I'm just going to pop here a little bit of a line for the land. So we're going to practice a little bit of that wet in wet again. And I'm going to come round the snowman. This is with my squirrel mop. I can come over the twiggy arms. In fact, I'm going to swap down to around number 10. I don't want to wet totally to the edge of the paper. I've got to try and create a little bit of a border. So I'll show you how I'm going to create a little bit of border as I go along. So I'm going to dip back into that intense blue. Whatever we're creating now. So I'm on around number 10. If you want to go smaller, you can. See, I'm looking where the tip of my brush is. If I can see the tip of my brush, I can see where I'm going to. That sounds silly, but it makes a lot of sense in the same way. If you can't see the tip of your brush, you don't know exactly where you're going to. You've not got precision painting. So it's about turning to be at the right angle to paint. I'm going to swap down to a number 6. I just want to create a bit of a rustic boundary there, a border. Just that side and just this side. So now, this is what I mean by I can't see the tip of my brush. I'm coming to this line, the tip of my brush is higher. So if I turn around, I can now see the tip of my brush again, so I know where it's coming to. That's a really good tip don't be afraid to turn it around so you can see where you're going, so you've got that precision. You can see that tip of my brush nice and easily. I've got the precision I need to bring it in and get a really nice edge. I'm just filling this section in. I'm going to keep this nice and flat today. Twizzling back round, make sure you can see it on the camera. And then again, I can see the tip of my brush, so I can get a nice edge this side. Sometimes it's just the simplest things that when you explain, all of a sudden you think, oh yeah, why have I not thought of that before? There we go. So we've got the start of a very nice snowman. So I'm going to continue with the blue. I've just rinsed my brush and I'm going to come into this section with just a little bit of water. What I basically want to do is create a shadow underneath the snowman so that he's sitting onto the snow. I'm going to bring that this way. If I just very carefully do a bit of an edge there as well, it helps keep that border nice. Okay, so I can then start to look into the snowman. Now if I put the shadow this side, I need to bring the darker side of the snowman this side as well. So I'm going to take in a little bit of a curve of colour. Don't need to come right the way to the end or edge. I'm going to get my round number 10 and I'm just going to wet that inside edge. So that I'm starting to get that little bit of shadow. The shadow will come under here as well. So I can just dab some of that in. I can do the same here. So you get a little bit of shadow underneath the hat. And then down the side of the face. Just don't want it to be too strong. You can get a little bit that comes underneath. The orange of the nose. If this looks a bit strong, I just want you to just dab a little bit off. I think it's okay, it's just got enough. But you can dab it off with a damp brush, a clean damp brush. I'm also going to bring a little bit into the pom-pom. So it's a few little flicks. Okay, I'm going to dry that one off. So that's nicely dry. So I'm going to wet this section of the hat. Then with my round number 6. And then I'm going to dip into the cadmium red and you can see it flowing. I'm going to make sure that this edge isn't too straight so you get a nice fluffy effect. And we know that the light's coming this way, so this is what we've got to keep remembering, because we need to try and preserve a little bit of white of that paper. So I'm going to be really careful and just try and preserve that little bit of white. A little bit fluffy into the pom-pom down here. Nothing says Christmas more than red. That was cadmium red. I've got some Payne's grey here. I'm still with my round number 6. At any point, if you think, oh, this is too much, you can swap down to a detailer or a smaller, something like a number 2. So I'm painting on to the dry shadow. The coal eyes. So I'm getting a nice circle, but I want to leave a highlight. If you can't quite leave the highlight, don't worry, you can put it in with a pen after. With the coal mouth, I just want you to dab. Don't be too precise about it being a circle. If you are too precise, what tends to happen is the circle gets bigger and bigger and you end up with coal bits the size of the whole head. I'm going to bring down these ones as well. 1, 2, 3. Little dab will just work. Actually, I'm just going to take a tiny bit of that Payne's grey. Now, Payne's grey is quite shooty, so what I want you to do is just dab a little bit off onto the kitchen towel so that there's not so much on the brush, so you can load the brush, then dab it off. That stops it shooting too far. And I'm going to take a little bit in just there where the line of the hat folds and you would have the shadow. Now, because we've been quite thick with that colour and it's gone on to damp, it's just got a very nice soft effect. I'm also just going to take a very little bit, a line of that Payne's grey, just a broken line, just along the bottom of the snowman. And then I'm just going to touch it with a wet brush. So that's just going to give an additional bit of shadow and grounding to the snowman. That's called softening in. So that's just wetting the where the paint needs to go. It doesn't have to go very far in that paint, but just enough. So I'm going to do an orange for the nose. So I've got some cadmium orange. If you can leave a highlight, great. If you can't, don't worry, you can put one on with pen. If you dip straight into the red, just add a little bit of the red at the bottom, it'll give you a natural bit of shadow. Okay, I shall go for a green scarf, I think, because I've got green left here. And it's a contrast to what we've got on the sky. We basically just want to contrast. You can do any colour scarf you want. So what we're going to do is paint in the neck of the scarf first. So this is coming on to dry. Remember, if you can see the tip of your brush, you know where you're painting. And you're going to paint either of those sides in. Then you need something that's going to darken it. I'm going to use a little bit of blue. So the light is coming this way. So you'll have a bit of shadow there and a bit of shadow at the bottom. Now I'm just going to dry this off, because otherwise if I go into these bits, it's going to blend through and I need a natural line to happen there that's dried. Okay, so that's nicely dry. I'm going to come on again onto dry with the colour. I'll do this bit behind as well. For dip into the blue, just going to run that along there, because it will be darker on the underside of the scarf. Now you can't hardly see this, but I have left a very, very, very fine line of dry in between. You can dry one bit off and then go on to the next bit. So I've rinsed my brush, I've dabbed it off on the kitchen towel, and I just want to lift a little bit of light. So I'm just working to lift a little bit of light on the top of this scarf. I don't want to do too much, just enough. Okay, I'm going to go down to my detailer, which is my round number 2. And then I can pop the tassely bits on the scarf. So I'm just resting on my little finger and flicking downwards. You get those nice little tassely bits. The other bit that I want to do is just pop in some ridges for the band of the hat. So just vertically, just running a few ridges down, but keeping it to the bottom 2/3 so that it still looks like I've got a bit of light showing on the hat. And then if I just take another bit of this blue along the bottom of the hat, it's just going to give him a little bit more shadow. And then I'm going to dip into the tiny bit of the grey. It's all about contrast. Get the tiniest bit on our brush, neat out of the tube. I can just run this along. It's just giving that additional bit of contrast under there, which helps that stand out. And then if I drop into the Payne's grey, I've got to put my twiggy arms on. So I'm going to keep with the detailer brush, resting on my little finger, put my little twig in, and the same this side. If you just rinse your brush out, dab it off once on the kitchen towel, and just touch the very end, it just softens it in with a little bit of shadow. And there we go. So that's day 3, I think, and I shall see you tomorrow.